So it just thrills me to death. And, oh, Ann, did you need to be host or you are just moderator? Oh, so let me unmute you. Okay. And I just making sure everything's right before I do the big and O to everybody. Okay, I'm going to mute all. And make sure that, oops, I have a feeling that Joshua is also not, yet you're not a host either. How did that happen? Okay, now you are. Please click that. And Dina Maria, you should have hosting capability, right? Yep. Okay. All right, we're all set with them. And so I want to tell you about these people and how they are absolutely breaking ground with all of the incredible work that they're doing. First of all, we have Dr. Josh Cohen. He is from Your Digital Storytelling Project. He's associated with Pure Mental Health, and he is a media psychologist. I just love that. A media psychologist, a film, he's a film and video editor. We've got some, hey, you want to give some back? We've got a lot of live stream stuff. You want to come, and a lot of crowdsourced video for our event. You want to fix that for us? Or get on some of your interns. We'd love that. So Brian, you did that. He is also the author and co-editor of the groundbreaking book Video and Filmmaking as Psychotherapy, Research and Practice in 2015. This is just amazing that we have him with us. He is part of the pioneering team that works on cinema therapy. And his history is just huge. They're going to tell you a lot about, what they do, how they do it. But he's worked on some amazing high-profile projects with filmmakers such as Patrick Swayze and Emmy Award-winning documentary filmmaker Doug Prey. He's a teacher. He's a clinical. I can't even remember. Works with the Department of Children and Family Services and a lot of other stuff. So Dr. Joshua Cohen is going to just rock your world with the changes. The changes that he's pushing forward when it comes to this modern, multimedia 360 video and video as therapy and VR as therapy. We also have one of our track leaders here for the V coaching and personal development, Dina Marie Faneker, who is here, CaptainVR. And she has been working worldwide on as a sailing. She worked on sailing traditional sailing vessels as a mate and later as a captain. She's been a professional coach since 2010, and she specializes in transforming negative behavior habits. Okay, none of us here in Altspace has a negative behavior habit in any way, shape, or form, right? Yes. So she teaches coaches and therapists how to work with this new technology and to empower people to improve the world through various VR tools and apps. So I want to turn this over to them. And then again, thank you both for your groundbreaking work, for your bravery and courage to bring this to a live audience at the same time. Again, I want to remind to everybody, this is being streamed live, filmed live in the real world, as well as here in Altspace at the same time. So please forgive any audio issues and echoes because it's circling around. They're on 2D, so they can also talk to their audience in the real world. So have some patience, give some love and some claps to these amazing, groundbreaking people. Yeah.
And please also give a big hand to Laurel. She's one of the co-founders of the Educators in VR platform, and she made this. Thank you so much. For us. Thank you. Dr. Cohen, you have the stage.
Well, thank you so much, Laurel, for the wonderful introduction, and Dana Maria for all the work that you guys have been putting into this presentation. To start off with, I wanted to also thank Painted Brain for their support behind this organization. Presentation. I'm going to show a video very briefly depicting both Pure Mental Health and Painted Brain and how they're involved with this particular process.
Welcome to the Art Gallery. Many of the artists can come out.
notion of using films as part of psychotherapy. So we're going to be applying that to a new project that's in collaboration with Your Mental Health and Think and Brink. I'll let you introduce that.
Yeah, sure. So hi, David Eli Israelian, co-founder of Pain and Brain and founder of Pure Mental Health. It's arts and tech media rehabilitation vocational program. So we are supporting the K population transitioning age youth between the ages of 18 and 29 to support them in getting the training they'll need to have sustainable jobs.
When we talk about mental illness, we usually talk about things like symptoms and impairment and challenges. Then we think about therapy and psychiatry and all these different ways to intervene with trying to minimize the symptoms of mental illness. But I think that the most important and most challenging aspect of mental health challenges is actually about the social communication. Pain and Brain is a platform on which people with mental health challenges can really sort of show themselves off to the world and demonstrate that they're worth hearing and worth listening to. We became a nonprofit just 2 years ago in 2017, but what we've always operated on is this idea that if you can get a group of people together around an art project, they will naturally form connections and social bonds with each other. And so our main service that we provide to Los Angeles is by offering art groups as a service.
We've also diversified into tech and media, graphic design, web development, coding, front-end development, app development, search engine optimization, social media marketing, and photojournalism. Well, we're very excited to be offering our tech training program. People that have homelessness, mental health issues, they sign in for a program and they basically learn how to code, and we do what we can to get them job ready. For many people that have lived experiences with mental health, those things could be a huge barrier for anyone trying to get back into getting a job. We're actually producing our own model of workforce development where we can actually say, having a mental illness is not a verdict on life.
In careers for media and tech, we teach them how to build websites, social media marketing, and we get into doing, thank you, and also journalistic writing and photojournalism. So we want to empower the mental health community of youth to voice their stories and to build different solutions that can help their peers. So it's coming from within.
Well, I'll wait for that to cycle back. My name is I'll say it again because I muted myself. My name is Dr. Cohen, and I just wanted to welcome everyone here and thank you all for being here at the IGM Art Gallery. And finally, as well as in the virtual space, it looks like we have people from all over. And to get further into the presentation, I wanted to also introduce the film and video-based therapy and virtual reality. So the original idea behind film and video-based therapy was a part of a book that was published in 2015. And the way it worked is we combined people from all over the world, including Israel, Canada, and a lot of people in New York that were doing films. One of them was Benjamin Patton, who is the grandson of George Patton from World War II. And they do multi-day filmmaking workshops all throughout the country on army bases. They're open to all branches of service to help reduce service-related stress. The other thing that we have so many authors in that book, I wouldn't be able to fully articulate every little aspect. So I put a video together as well for that introduction.
This form of therapy is about making films with clients. It draws from several disciplines, which requires a collaboration. My name is Dr. Josh Cohen. I gained my master's degree in psychology at Walden, and I wrote my thesis on the use of video as therapy. Graduated in 2007. This is where I learned the value of both research and practice. The clinical goal of the use of film and video-based therapy is a way of opening up the door to people who may never have been reached. The research goal of film and video-based therapy is to integrate both quantitative and qualitative methods. In 2001, I was working with a filmmaker on a project that highlighted the work of the Dalai Lama using technology. It inspired me to look for new ways of using technology for social action and healing. Later, I took the concept from my master's thesis from Walden, and I wrote a dissertation for my PhD based loosely on the information in my work. In 2015, I co-edited a book with Dr. Lauren Johnson and Dr. Penelope Orr. I was able to finally incorporate the video I did with the Dalai Lama into my chapter. In another chapter, they host multi-day filmmaking workshops at military bases and qualified facilities as a therapeutic intervention for veterans and military families coping with service-related stress. There are many other authors who wrote about topics ranging from domestic violence to the severely mentally ill. I learned from this that one person's kind words and reassurance can change another's life, which could have a ripple effect.
So there are a lot of applications for digital storytelling and film and video-based therapy, therapeutic filmmaking, a lot of different approaches and different names for the same thing. In fact, let me unmute myself here too. So can everyone hear me all right? Excellent. So the fact that we were able to do so many approaches to making movies, I realized one of the reasons I wanted to involve virtual reality was because as a psychologist, I'm a media psychologist, but I'm clinically trained. I would like to do therapy with people one-on-one, like I did in my training in my clinical program. So in order to work with and make movies, it's very difficult to do that when you have, a 50-minute or 55-minute hour. So making movies with clients and groups with virtual reality allows you to have a much bigger space. Opens up a huge space for you to work with people and make movies as well as to witness them, which is what cinema therapy is about. This particular program that I'm showing you now is from King's College, and what they're doing there is in putting someone in a simulated environment for virtual reality to experience some social disconnects, and this person is suffering from psychosis. So one of the questions that we ask in therapy is, do you see things that other people don't see, or hear things that other people don't hear? And with virtual reality, it levels the playing field a little bit so that the therapist can actually see the virtual environment. If there's a cognitive distortion, they can correct it. And in this case, the gentleman who's a up-and-coming musician, and he had a manic episode and broke down on the airplane, and they videotaped it. And it reached millions of people that way, and he thought, oh, great, there's nothing I can do. One of the things that helped him to get out of that situation was to go into therapy, and they brought this gaming technology. They brought virtual reality to the process. So it was really interesting to see him make these cognitive distortions at times, but she would correct him, and they felt more connected, because what this technology can do, as Frank talked about in his presentation, it brings people together, brings opportunities to people that, in my research, I hope to reach people that might not otherwise have been reached. So there are other companies like NewPath VR that do role play exercises. I'm not going to be able to go into as much detail as I would like, because we're up against a little bit of time. But there's also so much information on medical virtual reality and virtual reality for people that are trained as psychologists. Another overview that you might see in research-driven therapies for psychological wellness is that approach to opening up the door, not just to empathy, but also working with different approaches like dialectical behavioral therapy, or there are other approaches that could help us with assessments. And so this company, NewPath, is partnering with us in a new book that we're in the middle of writing, and they're going to be talking about something called, like I just mentioned, dialectical behavioral therapy. And so you can see that they treat everything from, pain, autism, post-traumatic stress, ADHD, and Parkinson's, stroke recovery. The list goes on. VR is an amazing, amazing platform for doing therapy. And so they've been accredited and we're very happy to be working with them. Another incredible company called Science gave us permission also to present a little bit about their work. They're based in Barcelona. So doing the kind of work that they do at Science originally started with phobia treatment. They have their own proprietary software. So you can actually watch or go into an elevator or an airplane. They have ways of exposing you to different situations, and they have their own program as well that teaches people how to administer these very complicated but very effective methods of using virtual reality. And here's some of the equipment that they use. I know that they were using the Gear VR at one point, and Dana Maria will tell you about the Gear VR and her success with that platform as well. I know we've gone on to many other kinds of virtual reality. So there's something still to be said about 360 VR. This company called Story Center does little vignettes like the one I showed you with the Dalai Lama, where somebody talks over the screen and they have a 4-day workshop to do digital storytelling. Now they're starting to involve virtual reality as well now. And of course, here at the University of California, Southern California, we have a local, a local celebrity in virtual reality, Skip Rizzo, who also, since he works at the Institute of Creative Technologies here, has allowed me to use his slides. Again, he has maybe a 2-hour presentation alone on his work. So just loosely, and to the best of my ability to distill his work down to a couple slides is, of course, very difficult, but I could say that working with, they have the opportunity here being in California and Los Angeles to work with Hollywood, to work with people in the academic field, and it's a great combination of that academia, therapy, and the new technology that they're working with to help involve people that in the military that have, again, post-traumatic stress disorder, but to be able to treat them using these new technologies. There are many other approaches that they've used. Again, something that would take several hours to go into the full detail, but when you get the link to this PowerPoint later on, we can also send you some videos as well of what they did. This is another new idea that I had of combining an app on the HTC called Mindshow. And by going into this virtual space, something drama therapists might find interesting is they get to actually take on the role of the avatar and make movies by playing the role, by going into the acting aspect. So this is something I'm trying to pioneer, like I said, with film and video-based therapy, as opposed to just exposure therapy. We want to go into the narrative. And that's where my favorite part of film comes in, which is editing. Being able to do a movie in my opinion, film comes from a language. It's putting images in pictures, just like we've had for, how long have we had film? 100 years. So it's very interesting that it comes down to 2 parts. It's the image and then the sound, and it's always really been that way. Even with VR, the new technology, it's to me, it's about telling a story. Editing to me is, I wrote about in the book about its connection to depth psychology, DEPTH, going into the archetypes of the collective unconscious, encouraging people to be imaginative, using the mythology, and getting involved with the image. That's what Dr. James Hillman talked about. And if you're familiar with Joseph Campbell, he's becoming more popular now with all the hero movies that have come out. And Dr. Hillman was a colleague of Joseph Campbell, and I also spent some time, I was honored to have supervision with Dr. Hillman when I was in grad school at Pacifica Graduate Institute. So I'm going to skip that last slide right there because unfortunately I realized it's on a private link, and all we can do is YouTube here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it showed, but I have to hide it for privacy reasons here in the U.S. as well as just decency around the world. But I might be able to send out a private link since the patient involved was blurred out, and I have it. The ethics about technology are very vague right now. So we published in the book, we talked about ethics in terms of privacy as a challenge to readers, since we're trying to find ways to both protect people's privacy, but get their information out to the world as well, to be seen and heard. That's an important part. So briefly, this case presentation was about a young boy who is about 11 years old, and he was being corporally punished by his father. And it's really kind of sad that on one hand that he was receiving what looked like abuse. You know, he was getting hit. And the father was smart enough to hide it as corporal punishment. There weren't any bruises or marks, but emotionally this boy was traumatized. And what we did is he did some art therapeutic interventions where he did volcanoes, and anger came out all over the place. But what was really interesting was somebody recommended him to work with me. And so what I did is I put him into a green screen, which is talked also about in the book, using that technology, even though it wasn't VR yet, at the time, it enabled us to connect with the boy's sadness. And I'll tell you how we did that, because he was, and this is remarkable, for someone being abused to be able to say, he's a good boy. A lot of times you might see in abusive situations that the child might, turn on themselves rather than make the parent. But he was very strong in his ability to stay focused on his own self-worth. And that was really important to him. It was important to the therapy. So we did a video where he was basically using two puppets. One of them was a good boy from a happy home. One was a good boy from a sad home. So we paused the camera, talked to him. That's where the therapy really kind of took place. And then we videotaped in between. And so that took, half an hour for me to set up the green screen with lights. And so using virtual reality, we'd have a much better chance of actually implementing that and generalizing it to psychologists around the world, as well as our therapists around the world, and anthropologists and the other people, anyone that wants to tell a story in whatever academic form. And the focus here is healing. So that is pretty much all that I have with this particular presentation. I realize I could probably go on more, but the video was going to take up more time. Does anyone I do have 10 minutes. Why don't we take that 10-minute time period to ask any questions that people have? Oh, in the gallery or in virtual space? Oh, I think. Brink, do you have a question?
Yeah, so, Dr. Cohen, first of all, this sounds amazing, and I'm so glad someone's doing it.
I don't hear you anymore. Maybe you can repeat your...
I'm going to repeat the question. Yes.
Okay, yes.
So,
Yeah, let's have Frank's going to ask the question.
So my first note was that this is astounding and wonderful work. And I'm very happy that it's being pioneered by Dr. Cohen. The question I have is, how soon will you be able to see live patients in reality and in virtual reality?
Well, that's a great question, because that's what we're doing with, that's a great lead into what peer mental health is involved in. We're in the process of hiring people that can help us to meet that goal very quickly. We've got some interest also because of what peer mental health does is it doesn't just create therapy. Virtual reality and the tech aspects of this company are going to help create jobs. And that's really where the bottom line it comes into. The therapy is there to help support them and get those jobs. But we can see from the work that Eli or David has done with Painted Brain as well, which you saw in the video, helps people to learn how to code and learn how to work the technology so that they can become web designers. Oh yeah, we have a question out there. So that's basically what the focus is. What was, is it Carlos?
Yes. Whoops.
I'm going to mute myself.
All right, good. That sounds better. Dr. Cohen, welcome to AltSpace and to this amazing, oops. All right, now I got it. Okay. Dr. Cohen, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry. So welcome to Educators in VR. My question is, what kind of content do you show people that have disabilities, sort of like, for example, bipolar? What kind of content or videos or VR experiences do they see in there?
Well, going back to that slide, it's a great question. So the question to everyone out here is what kind of videos do you show for people that have bipolar or other conditions? There isn't a lot of research with bipolar disorder, although my opinion is that it's the same thing as trauma with the triggers coming from the inside and needs to be medicated. Unfortunately, you can't medicate post-traumatic stress. But the triggers that come in from the outside, in this case, what they were doing with King's College is that it allowed people to, or this particular patient, to go into a social environment or into places where they might get, say, a panic attack. And she would simulate the heartbeat. And then if it got to be overwhelming, which is the definition of trauma, when you get overwhelmed, that's when you can, with the virtual space, you can titrate it down. Which means you can take the intensity of it and move it down a little bit so it's more tolerable until they can build up a resistance. But the other part of the question, with specifically with bipolar, is to be able to deal with the thoughts that might come up and then be able to redirect them. We have someone floating, and to be able to redirect their thoughts towards something more positive, and that's why it becomes helpful to have VR, because they can actually see what those situations are and say, well, maybe that person isn't following you. That can be one way of doing it, but I'm sure there are other ways that we're still working on. And, it's a great question. Thank you.
I want to just follow. Oops. To follow up with that, with Hell's Blade Sensua, have you seen that experience, the game?
No, but I have a feeling I'm about to very soon.
If you have a chance to look at that, that was built with a girl that had heard voices. I guess it's paranoid schizophrenic. Is that possible? I'm not a doctor, so that's not my field.
Schizophrenia can also be one way of hearing voices. There's also schizoaffective disorders where they have psychosis, but only during mood periods. It's again another form of bipolar. There's also brief psychotic. There's a lot of different ways that people can see things. In fact, every single person here, at one point or another, has what they call hypnagogic and hypnopompic hallucinations when they go to bed or when they wake up. It's just all that psychosis is really is an excess of dopamine in the system. And so the opposite of that, of course, is Parkinson's, which is too little, and they give them L-Dopa. So there's a lot of, that's why it has to be medicated. But in order to keep them stable, they really can't use VR until they're stable. I wouldn't work with someone that was an addict or actively on a substance. Getting people's needs met are very important first for therapy. So that's why the field of social work also comes into play. They have to have food, they have to have a house, they have to have all these things ready and available to people they can actively engage. So I would love to see that program.
They consulted with a psychiatrist to be able to make the game as real as possible. And it's really mind-boggling. It's also one of the most beautiful games that is out there right now. It's a small team that built it. Ninja something is the studio, and I'm going to tweet you the game again so that or I can actually send it to your email there, so you can have a look at it on the next time you have a chance at that.
That would be fantastic. And then if with your permission, I also have a Facebook site where I share information to the public about film and video-based therapy. That's an open website as well. If you go to if you can't find it, you can always go to the social media part of filmandvideobasedtherapy.com and just click on the link to where it says Facebook. And I would love to.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions here at the gallery or in virtual space?
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned using mind.
And it seems quite interesting. I know that I've heard of traditional therapy where they would record the patient and then the patient would give himself advice after listening to a recording or a video recording of themselves. So I'm curious, you said you've been experimenting, but have you already tried it with some patients, and how would that work? Do they take roles or what's the process?
Usually the process for doing anything with research is you have to go through what's called an IRB form, and then you do, it's for human subjects, and basically you get an approval through a university. If we're going to use something new, I prefer to introduce, that's why I'm writing another book, so that we can play with these ideas, involve drama therapists, and get, because there are other approaches, of course, that some people think this belongs with just art therapy. What I really feel is that film is an embodiment. You're dancing, you're moving, there's a lot of physicality involved, and that's really where the trauma gets lodged in the body. So to kind of dance around the question, I think we're going to be working with the right people to make sure that it's safe before going out to the public. But I mean, it's because there's a process for doing that. But that's why we write in books and why we do research, so that we can introduce something new.
Okay, I understand. Thank you for answering my question, and a great talk also.
Well, thank you so much. Any other questions? Oh yeah, I see over there. We have. I'm trying to get Christy. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for your talk so much. I did have a question about if you are using 360 video, which platform are you using, and how do you incorporate interactions in the 360 videos?
That is a great lead-in for the next presentation, actually, because Dana Maria has been doing exactly that, and with a coaching environment, and her presentation will, I think, answer that perfectly.
Awesome.
But from my point of view, I still work with film, and just introducing VR as a part of the curriculum. Just like I showed it in the video, there was a scene from. I think it's Tavori. I can't pronounce the name of the app, but in that one you can control the camera, you can control the lighting, and it's a way to do 3D animation. I'm gonna probably want to work with that with clients so they can be an avatar and not lose their privacy and still broadcast some of their videos.
Nice, awesome.
So stay tuned for Dana Maria's presentation so you can get your questions answered. Anyone else have any questions? And how are we doing on time?
Time is okay.
Awesome. So I could do a little song and dance, or we could go ahead to Dana Maria. Why don't we go ahead with your presentation, and then we'll have more time. If people think of more questions, we can ask that.
Afterwards, we have more questions. Even so. Thank you so much. Dr. Cohen. I hear myself. That's so distracting. Can you please mute yourself? Okay, thank you so much. Yes. I've been already introduced by Laurel, so that was really nice. Or would you want to say something about my presentation, Dr. Cohen? Are
Yes,
you
of course.
staying with me?
Yes, I'm still here. I lost the mouse for a second. So, for those of you that don't know Dana Maria, she is she has a company called CaptainVR, and she's based in the Netherlands. She's also the recipient of a prestigious award with the Samsung Gear VR, and which I actually have one right here. If you guys want to take a look after the presentation and see what that looks like, and has really brought a philosophy with her coaching to say that everyone is a captain of their own ship. Everyone can have their dreams come true, and she uses VR with coaching to help people come over to overcome their phobias, as well as learning how to basically coach them into something. When you're dealing with coaching, you don't usually get a chance. In therapy, you don't usually get a chance to always go for the best. The insurance doesn't always cover things where people are trying to achieve things beyond just what the symptoms are. And so this is why I think a lot of psychologists really turn to coaching, because there's a point where the client is doing okay, but there's something missing in their life. And so being able to go beyond that is what I think Dana Maria has helped with do with her virtual reality company. And without further ado,
Thank you so much.
I will mute myself.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, yes, that was really nice. Nice that you all are here. Are there any coaches in the room? Can you share your love? Yeah, hands. I see 1, 2 coaches, yes. And psychologists, are there any psychologists in the room? And researchers, yes, okay, very good. Nice that you all are here. So I will start a little bit talking about how it all started. So I started 10 years ago coaching people on self-limiting behavior, helping people to become the captains of their lives. And instead of slaves to their patterns or to their behaviors. And in 2015, I saw a video. Next slide, please. Oh, yes, sorry. Because of before I get here, I was a sailor and I sailed on big traditional sailing vessels, and that's why the name CaptainVR existed, because I want to make people captains of their lives, and virtual reality is the most powerful tool to help me with my mission. That's why the name of my company is CaptainVR. And next slide, please. So this video changed my life and the way I work today. This is a famous Dutch TV presenter, Matthijs van Nieuwkerk. You don't see him very well because he's wearing VR goggles at the moment, but he's falling from his chair because he just had a roller coaster experience. And when I saw this video in 2015, I knew what VR was about. I had a vision how I could use virtual reality to expose people to the things that they find difficult in their lives, their challenges or their goals. And as soon as I could, I ordered the Oculus Rift from America and I started experimenting. And this is connecting realities, actually. In that same year, I started developing my own tools because there were no tools yet, and I wanted to experiment with coaching. So I by the end of that year, I found a developer called Joost Boschert, and with him, I made a virtual reality tool that is called the Party Fear tool. This is the Party Fear app. The fear of parties is it actually. So the fear of going to like a gathering where people have celebration. And there's a lot of people, much more people than you would think of, have this shyness or maybe social phobia that they cannot go to these parties. And I wanted to do something with that. So I created this tool. Next slide, please. Where you can experiment with 360 video how it is to be in such a situation. So you see, this is a living room with people where you sit in a circle and then you can introduce yourself to a crowd or to a person. There's different kind of videos. And you can also walk into the room full of strangers and see how people react. And the coach who can help you then with going through the emotions that you feel in that moment. I'm gonna talk about that more, how we do that as a coach. You can ask me questions afterwards about that. Sorry for my cough. It does appear suddenly. So also, next slide, please. So here you see, for example, a toast you give out. So you can teach people how to give a toast. So this is like the heaviest level. So what I did in this app, these were 15 videos we made, and we made these videos with coaches, clients, friends, and we just tried one day. We made a small, scenarios, and we tried things out the whole day, and we had like 15 videos in the end that we really could help people with. And we tested this tool on the starter. How you call it? It's a starter company, not a starter company, but it's a program, the Maguire Starter Program. That's a worldwide famous for helping people to get rid of their stutter, and they tested this tool to get rid of the fear of stuttering, because this is what is mostly it is about. It's the fear of stuttering, and that's why you stutter. So, and that was really interesting. Shortly after, next slide, please. I won the Samsung VR challenge for the best virtual reality idea in the Netherlands for improving lives. And the idea is called Fear or Love. And CaptainVR was born because we wanted to develop tools that help people to conquer all sorts of fears or phobias. No more fear that is blocking you from the things that you love. And then nothing will stop us from reaching our goals and dreams. That was the idea. And Samsung helped me to set up my company. And this is how CaptainVR started, actually. If I go too fast, please raise your hand, because I can go sometimes really fast in my presentations, and then I go slower. Sorry. So the next thing, what happened was, soon after that, can you please go to the next slide? So soon after that, I got contacted by this woman. She's called Joyce Moulet. And Joyce Moulet was a person who had extreme wasp phobia. She was rejected by the mental therapy for EMDR, and it failed. And she came to me with like the last hope. And she was already 51 years old. And I told her, I'm not a psychologist. You know, I'm a coach. This is a very extreme case. But if you want to try it, I will happy to help you. I think I can help you with virtual reality. It was funny that at the same time, a company of Ukraine contacted me because they wanted to make a tool for me to see if we could collaborate it on some level. So they developed a tool according to my vision. So that was like 6 levels with like an easy level, nothing happens, or the wasp stays far away, and then the second level is 2 wasps coming closer, and the third level is no wasps to see, but the sound of wasps, only the sound of wasps. That can be really scary for people. And like the 5th level or the 6th level was wasp landing on your arm. And although it was a great with on paper and on Skype was not going really well. So in the end, I got an app with 6 levels. That was great, from easy to difficult. But in this app, you had this body, and it was like almost like a naked torso with a floating arm, because I asked them to put arms on the table, and so the wasps can in the end land on the arm. Anyway, to make a long long story short, I thought this app would not help because the body was so strange. It was a male body. It was a naked torso, like not totally naked. But I thought, this is a woman. How can it, can this help her? Will she embody this person in this environment? And she did. And it was so surprising to me, but also so amazing. She accepted this body as her own because her biggest fear was this wasp. And this was the first day, and the agreement was that I could film her also, and you get already an idea. It was already too much, I needed to work. I could not even put the glasses on. The sound was already so much. So in the first 15 minutes, we did 1.5 hour first session, and then I slowly put her into the environment, and sometimes I just told her she can put her headset off whenever she liked, and also she had a code like code red, and that means I put her headset off her head, and I asked her numbers all the time, like tension numbers or stress numbers, to see where the stress was the most. So if she had a number higher than 7, so 0 is no stress and 10 is highest level stress, unbearable stress level, then I would get her out of the therapy or out of the coaching. So, and in the beginning that was like really quickly, the 7 was really going fast. And what I do, I have this coaching method I use, but besides that, I am a coach and use other techniques like EFT, emotional freedom technique. I use Psyche, that's to transform limiting thinking patterns. It's sort of an NLP and other techniques that I use besides virtual reality. So when somebody is so stressed that you cannot work with her in a virtual environment, I get this person out of the environment and then work with her to calm her stress level. For example, to calm down many times it's about the fight, flight, freeze response, and then a person can just not be coachable anymore because she's so in this stress moment. So we need to calm the stress level down, and we do that with breathing techniques or EFT or key training. So these are techniques that are really helpful, I find. But also cognitive behavior therapy, of course, is very helpful. Anyway, next slide. So here you see her at the fourth session. Let me tell you, the first session was already amazing. She already changed. It was already life-changing, because what I found out that her story was that when she was 4 years old, she went down the slide, and while she went down the slide, the wasp was chasing her, and under the slide, she got stung by the wasp. And the biggest thing in this whole story was her mom didn't believe her. And this was the whole issue. Because as soon her mom didn't believe her, and then she developed behavior that she needed to show the whole world that there was a wasp coming or any flying insect. And this happened to have her then screaming and waving her arms until she was 51 years old. She was screaming and extremely making hectic arm movements because of a wasp that was coming. She didn't go to the kindergartens. She didn't go to cafeteria. The moment that that her mom didn't believe her, that moment was so important that she realized that this was causing her behavior. That already dropped down her behavior like maybe 40%. So as soon as she walked out the door after the first session, realizing this was causing her behavior, she already could let it go somehow. And then I could work with her more. And you see, this is the 4th session. We went to her house with the HoloLens. This was in 2016. and we make the wasps in her own private house. So we helped, or I coached her in her in her own safe environment. So that was really to see how that helped. And then 2 years later, I get connected with her again, and she's on holiday for the first time in her life, and she walks past wasps with no problem, and she can live her life like any normal person after 51 years old with this extreme fear. This is what virtual reality does. This is amazing what it does, and I'm very passionate about these things. Okay, next slide. Sorry. So I'm not going to talk about VR Mood Booster right now, because tomorrow I will give another session, and then I will talk about stress reduction. This is a session I give at 5 p.m. CET, so Amsterdam time, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and this session is at 8 o'clock a.m. in Pacific time. And this is all about what I do with stress and with biofeedback measurement, how to prove that stress tools are working. And more about that tomorrow. You can also ask me after this session more about that. I can go on a little bit into it. Okay, next session, next slide, please. So yes, this is one project I've been doing called Friend or Enemy. And Friend or Enemy is about lover boys. And lover boys in Holland is a concept that we call boys that force girls into prostitution. And these girls are like between 13 and 28 years old. And this is a very big problem in the Netherlands and also in Belgium. And so we interviewed these girls and their therapists, and we developed scenarios so they can practice with intimidating situations with men that happen in real life, so they don't repeat